My daughter Sierra and her friend Michelle were killed in a car accident. They were coming from a party. They both had been drinking, and she drove way too fast.
My girlfriend and I were coming from Madison, and we were hit by a drunk driver. She died, and so did the guy that hit us.
He died of massive head trauma, and had he been wearing a seatbelt at the time, the probability that he survived would have been great.
He left her there. He didn't call 911. He didn't use his cell phone. He didn't go to see if she was okay or not. He left. And he stopped on his way home and washed the blood off his car.
I heard the voice screaming, and I kind of covered my head, and I could hear the window shattering, the voice screaming, and then all of a sudden, everything was quiet.
You know, you don't want somebody getting killed and ruining your whole life because somebody had to have a drink or two before they went home.
When you, as an individual, or you put somebody else or a family in this position, or you kill them, it's forever.
As my only sister was killed in an automobile accident in the wintertime due to the driver driving too fast for conditions.
A 1-year-old cannot take the shock of going from highway speed to nothing like that, because that's what killed him. Stop the heart.
I found out at the crash scene that a woman had died. She was a single mom and had 2 young children, and she died instantly because of me, a drunk driver.
Me and a couple of friends were out drinking and partying, and we decided to get in the car and drive that night. And, you know, I buckled my seatbelt right away because it's just something I've always done. My parents have taught me to do. And we were going around a corner, and we were probably going about 70 miles an hour. You know, I knew it was coming. They knew it was coming too. A couple cuss words came out, and as we take the corner, we started to roll, and I'm sitting upright in the car. And, you know, I started screaming, you know, what happened? Where are you guys? I'm screaming, Matt, Jeremy, Kyle, where are you guys? And kind of look around, nobody's in the car. I'm all alone. So I unbuckle my seatbelt, the car is smashing all around me. I can't get any doors open. But I crawled out a window, and I seen my boyfriend, Matt, lying there right away, and he was lying on his back like he was sleeping. So I actually knelt beside his head, and I lifted it up, and there was a hole the size of probably a baseball. Lots of blood. You know he's dead, but you don't want to believe it, kind of thing. I was the only one wearing a seatbelt. And you know, the boys, they were having a good time. They were all laughing, and I even said, you know, we're going kind of fast. You guys put your seatbelt on. Or they just didn't think it could happen to them, you know. With the alcohol impairing their judgment, they just didn't think, I guess.
My 27-year-old son was a teacher, was returning from a reception actually on his birthday, and was involved in a car accident and died, and unfortunately wasn't wearing a seatbelt at the time. Yeah, according to the physicians, it was the cause of death was head trauma. So in all likelihood, he would have survived had he been wearing a seatbelt. You know, for a long time, I didn't wear a seatbelt, and it's unfortunate that tragedy has to impact on you before you see the importance of this very, very simple task. It takes 2 seconds to buckle up. You're putting your life in jeopardy, and you're putting children's lives in jeopardy when you don't buckle up. Take that 2 seconds just to buckle up.
My friend was killed by the drunk driver, and she was a sergeant here in Wausau, an Army recruiter. The drunk driver was passing a vehicle, and we were going 65 miles an hour, and he was too. Due to the accident, getting hit by a drunk driver, and the fact that I was not wearing a seatbelt, and I was not a seatbelt wearer before that accident, I ended up having injuries that I had to deal with, ending up in the hospital for 2 months, having glass in my forehead because of hitting a windshield, and I'm still working on getting that glass out.
My ex-wife and I were driving back from taking a load of boxes or whatever to a new home we were moving into, and we had to make a stop at a truck stop because one of my daughters had to go to the bathroom, and we were in separate cars. At the same time, a young man was celebrating his 18th birthday with a bunch of his friends, and he was coming back from the celebration, traveling at a high rate of speed without his headlights on. And just as I was getting ready to cross the highway, this young kid hit me broadside, and his car exploded, went up in the air, bounced off a parked car in a truck stop parking lot, and threw him out of the car, and then eventually his car landed on top of him. They literally had to scrape him off the ground. And he died in the accident. My car went up into the air, flipped 3 times in the air without even touching the ground. When I finally landed, my car slid like about 300 feet down the highway. The condition that I've been left in is I'm a C4-5 quad. I'm paralyzed from about the middle of my chest down. I feel nothing from that down. The splints on my wrist help to stabilize my wrist, to keep them straight so I can drive my wheelchair and do other things. I have no use of my fingers. There's no dexterity in my fingers at all. If I hadn't been hit by this speeding young drunk driver, I would have been able to do a lot of the same things everybody else does every day. Or when they go on vacations or so on and so forth. I wouldn't be limited to just this life in a wheelchair. Well, the things I used to love to do prior to my accident. I played guitar for about 18 years. And I used to love swimming. I used to love to play football. As odd as it sounds, I used to love to mow the lawn. It was especially frustrating when my young grandson came up to me one day when he wanted to give me a kiss goodbye. And he put his arms up to me and he said, Papa, to give me a kiss. And I couldn't reach down and pick him up. For people that say that it's okay to drink and drive, I tell them to more or less take a roll or a step in my shoes for 6 months. And they'd find that the urge to drink and drive would go away really fast.
My daughter, Amy Stamm Kubler, was hit by a drunk driver while she was jogging along the road. And she was struck so hard that she went 500 feet into a deep ditch. Amy was married, and her husband had come home that night and found her not home. So he looked around and he saw that she had some of her jogging clothes was gone. So he thought maybe she was still out running, but it was 10:30 at night by that time. And so he called my son, who lived about 3-4 miles away, and he came over really quickly, saw a shoe on the highway near where their house is, and they called 911, and my son went down into the ditch and where the shoe was and found her there. And neither one had ever seen anybody die before. They loved her so much. If this hadn't happened to our family, to my daughter, I think we'd be happy. We're not happy. We're never really totally happy. I think more than anything, we would have her here and we'd be able to laugh and hug her and have her children be raised while we're around. It's like the worst thing a parent could ever imagine, losing a child. One thing I would say to anyone who gets in the car after they've been drinking or using anything that would impair them is don't take anybody's life in your hands. You could hurt an innocent child, an innocent person. People go off the road all the time and they think, oh, I didn't hit anybody. But that man that hit my daughter went off the side of the road and he hit somebody.
My husband Walter, our 14-month-old son Matthew, and I we're going up to Three Lakes. It was on a Saturday evening, and we were going up to visit my husband's parents. We were on Highway 45, about 7 miles north of New London, when my husband noticed a pickup truck coming down, going south on 45, and he also noticed that this pickup truck was crossing over the center line into our lane. Well, my husband tried to steer the car out of the way. He couldn't get it far enough out of the way, though. And we were hit head-on more toward my front part of the car. My husband, seconds after the crash, I'm sure, could tell that both Matthew and I were unconscious. They came and got us and took us to the New London hospital, where Matthew was pronounced dead on arrival. What happens when you drive drunk? How it affects families, that it's not just a headline in the paper, a blurb on the news, that it's real, that it affects people their whole life, and that it's wrong. And I don't know how they live with it, because I know how we've adjusted to lose him, but how they adjust to the fact that their whole life they've got to know and remember that they actually killed someone. I don't know how they can deal with that.
I was on my way up north to go fishing at our cabin. And on the way up north, I drank in the car. I had drank and drove before. Just north of Wasaki, I drifted across the center line of the road and I hit another car head on. I found out at the crash scene that a woman had died. She was a single mom. I didn't give her a chance. You read the autopsy report, the injuries were massive internal injuries. She died instantly. I didn't give her a chance. I heard those words go into my brain, I understood them, I registered, I knew what that meant, but I don't know what the words are to explain the feeling you have when you're responsible for killing someone through a drunk driving crash. Many people take drinking and driving for granted. Sometimes it seems to be a culture in Wisconsin, and it's something that just people do without another thought. I had drink and drove many times. This was the first time anything has ever happened to me. I've never had a drunk driving, although I should have had many. I've never been involved in a crash, and my first crash from a drunk driving incident cost the life of another human being. And I had to deal with that. It has not been an easy road to deal with. It's been a tremendously hard road to deal with that. But it doesn't compare anything to what that woman's family has had to go through. They lost a mom, they lost a sister, they lost a daughter, and they've got to live with that for the rest of their life. There's nothing I can do to bring her back. You think that it's not going to happen to you? I'm here today to tell you that it can happen to you. It happened to me. I didn't think it was going to be me, but it is. So the dangers of drinking and driving are tremendous. The ramifications are huge, and we don't think about that. And I think the reason we don't think about it is because we're selfish, we're doing what we want to do, and we don't think it's going to hurt anybody else. But it does. It hurts far more people than we can begin to imagine. And if every individual will just take a little step forward and make a change and not get behind the wheel, we can start to take the culture of Wisconsin and turn it. We can start to get to the zero in Wisconsin. We can make this work if we all try together.
The relationship between my sister and I was more than just sisters. Considering my sister was 12 years younger than me, it was almost like she was not just a sister, but almost a child to me, and we were very close. She had many things going for her. She was going to graduate from high school that year. She was killed 3 months before graduation. I would say anyone who thinks that they are an experienced enough driver or have been driving for I don't care how many number of years and thinks that they can drive as fast as they want in winter road conditions that are dangerous, they're absolutely wrong. Even going 10 under the speed limit most of the time is not slow enough. You can't control a vehicle when you hit ice. You can't control a vehicle that's coming towards you and hope that they're going to stop.
I was affected by my husband being hit by a drunk driver. We were coming home from the Madison Mallards baseball team game. It should not have happened. My husband was crossing the street in a crosswalk, a lighted crosswalk, when this lady hit him. It's just a very, very terrible thing that happened to our life. In 1 minute you have this wonderful life that you have a husband that's always there and you're always doing something with, and the next minute you don't have anything at all. Your life is just gone.
My daughter Sierra and her friend Michelle were at a party. Sierra had been trying to get somebody, had been calling friends, trying to get somebody to come and pick her up because she knew she had been drinking. Shouldn't be driving. Subsequently, when they fled the party, they were operating way too fast, failed to negotiate a curve, and their car went sideways into a tree at a high rate of speed, and they both died instantly from the impact.
These teens think they're invincible. My daughter told me 3 weeks before she died, if I can't have fun, I don't want to live. And I said to her, you know, Sierra, those consequences, sometimes they're deadly. And then she proved it. Since Sierra's died, our whole life has changed. Our daughter, she didn't graduate from high school. She'll never get married. She'll never go to college. She'll never have children. Every day, every minute of each day, I live with my daughter's death. The choice that she made that night affected so many people. Not only did she take herself, she took her best friend with her.
Rose is right. There isn't a day goes by. You look at everything much differently. All we can do is do whatever we can so that somebody else doesn't go through the same experience that we have.
If someone thinks that they're okay to drive after they've been drinking alcohol, I would like to take them by the hand and walk 1 block up from my house and go visit my daughter's grave and her friend Michelle's just right down the way. I go see my daughter every morning and every night before I go to bed. That's how I see my daughter. So if you think you're okay to drink and then drive, you have a rude awakening, a very rude awakening. I live this every single day. That's how I get to see my daughter.
Zero in Wisconsin.
0 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 in Wisconsin.
A vision we can all live with.
A vision we can all live with.